Okay, it's Sunday, so that means against my better judgment, it's time to go on Reddit. But first, before we start, I'm going to take this moment to stroke my ego and perhaps someone else's. Long-time viewer, Radon is Online, sent me this in my email yesterday. I'll get out of the way so you can actually see it. Which is absolutely incredible that someone would take time out of their day to actually draw something about me. Absolutely incredible. Radon also I hope that's how you say it. Radon has, Radon? But Radon, also has a YouTube channel. Similarly, it's about Overwatch, so it's probably relevant to your interests, and I'll link to it in the description, and up there, I think, because for some reason, YouTube decided to take annotations out of the system, which is, like, one of the only redeeming things they've added to YouTube in the last, 7 years, so that's very disappointing. But, anyway, so, thank you very much, and now after that, let's get started. So, this is not a question. No, it's not a question. It's, what does it say, though? Keep an eye on your kill feed. Do not commit. Yeah, It's all true. I love playing Ana, but should I stop her? Oh god, that's big. What I'm really looking for is SR. So, that's pretty high. That's almost Masters. See, no, the answer is no. If you love playing a character, you should keep playing the character, because no character is, completely unplayably bad. Some heroes will require more effort to get anything out of them. For example, Doomfist, Ana, Torbjorn, Symmetra. All of these heroes are not very good. So if you want to play them, you have to be better at them relative to everybody else. But if you want to play them, you should keep playing them. Now, the thing is that, once you get to diamond, but particularly high diamond and above that, obviously, playing a middling or a bad hero starts to get really, really difficult, because you have to play really well, because the thing is, those heroes tend to have not very much going for them in ways of carrying the game, and they tend to be easily exploitable as well. Ana is very weak to dive comps, so if you're playing against a very high SR team, and they see that you're playing Ana, they might just change to more dive heroes and kill you. And there's not much you can do about that. So if you're in a high SR bracket, playing a middling or bad hero gets very, very difficult. But if you love playing the hero, you should keep playing the hero, but it is probably going to be hard at that point. Up until Diamond, it doesn't really matter who you're playing, because up until that point, people barely know how to play their own heroes anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Is it essential to go on mic? The short answer is no. I have social anxiety, I understand. I don't go in there because it's fucking trash, basically. The Overwatch community is terrible. And, no communication ever actually seems to happen, and also I like to fight people, so me being in the voice chat honestly lowers, our chances of winning on average. No, it is not essential to go on microphone. What I do recommend, even if you aren't gonna talk, people, tilt over the fact you aren't in voice chat, so a strategy is to set it to just automatically join the voice chat, and then lower the output of the voice chat to 0. And then your team think you're in voice chat, and that's all they really care about. They don't actually care if any communication happens, because often it doesn't. Quite a few times people will be like, oh, we lost because nobody was in chat, and then because one or two people weren't in chat, and then somebody else goes, no one was talking fucking anyway. Yeah. This voice chat is not as important as people make it sound like it is. I've gotten to Masters and I don't talk to human beings. But people do tend to tilt over it, so set it to auto join and put it to 0 volume. They don't know that, they think you're there and that's all they really care about. No, it is not essential to go on microphone. If you don't want to use the microphone, just don't, frankly. Because here's my perspective on it, right? Just so you understand my argument, here's my argument. First off, the Overwatch community is trash, and I don't want to interact with them anyway. But more than that, 9 times out of 10, probably more like 7 or 8 out of 10, but most of the time, no actual communication happens anyway, because if you are on the winning team, communication tends to not be very important because you're already winning, and not much communication usually happens anyway because there isn't very much to talk about when you're winning. And if you're losing, still no communication happens because once you start losing, people get really upset. I don't know if you've noticed, the Overwatch community is really prone to tilting, so the team that starts losing first usually just keeps losing, and communication doesn't tend to solve that problem. That's my perspective on it anyway. Questions on counter strategies. How does one deal with Junkrat? I'm not talking about stupid Junkrat. Well, I mean, yeah. Pick Pharah. Pharah's really good. Pick a dive tank. D.Va is gonna be better on average against Junkrat, but, well, I guess that's debatable. I find D.Va to be better against Junkrat personally, but people would definitely argue that Winston is better against Junkrat. And, I mean, you can pick a flanker like Genji. Genji's pretty good against Junkrat because you can kind of harass him and then deflect things back into him, and you can get behind, like, the shields and everything to poke at him. Basically, like, if the Junkrat's playing well, it's hard to kill the Junkrat. The most surefire method is Pharah, but if the enemy team has, like, a really good McCree or Widow, that's going to be difficult as well. So, the Pharah will be, like, the most consistent way, but other than that, it's going to be pick a flanker and, like, Genji. Tracer's a little scarier. Reaper also can, but he can just kind of, like, push you away. So, like, Pharah, Genji, or one of the dive tanks. There's also always, you know, the hippie answer of, oh, well, coordinate with your team. But, I mean, given what what we've just been talking about with the last question, you probably know my feelings on that. How do you handle double shield compositions on attack? So I'm assuming you mean Rein, Orisa, Bastion. So, the thing is that it's very difficult to deal with those comps by yourself, right? Because, think about it, if they're all playing together like that, and you are going to be 3v1ing in a lot of situations unless you have your team to help you. So, it's always going to be difficult to get rid of that composition by yourself, and this is the problem that people run into, where it is usually that a couple of people just kind of run at them and try to kill the Bastion, and then they get killed, and then you have to play like fucking 3v6 the entire rest of the fight. It's very difficult to deal with those compositions by yourself, but people always try to deal with it by themselves. The Genji goes in, the Reaper goes in, the Roadhog, they all just sprint up to him and suicide on him, like, one by one. That doesn't work, because, just like base level, one person's running into 3 people. So you're gonna need your team to not be absolutely suicidal to really have any hope of it at all. Now, the best you can do solo is gonna be pick Junkrat, or, and bear with me on this, pick Hanzo. Junkrat, probably fairly self-explanatory, break shields from far away so Bastion can't kill you. And then when you build up the tire, which isn't too difficult, you can send it into the nest and kill them. Hanzo, same basic idea. You build up your ultimate, though. Like, Hanzo doesn't break shields, obviously. You just build up your ultimate and then throw Dragon Strike through them. And Dragon Strike builds up relatively quickly, because Hanzo does a lot of damage if you can hit people. And then if you can find a way to slip Scatter Arrow in past the shields, then that'll kill the Bastion as well. But, those are, like, the best you can do by yourself, really. The thing is, like, you need some amount of teamwork, because they're using teamwork. Because they're using teamwork, it's very hard to deal with it without teamwork, also. But Junkrat and Hanzo are going to be, like, the best options you have, really. Just because Bastion, they both have ultimates that'll fuck up the nest, basically, and Junkrat can also break barriers as well. They will have to make a mistake most likely for it to actually work, but that's like the best you can do by yourself. How do you deal with Tracer in any particular capacity? Does it come down to just... I can't hit her, not as it. I mean, okay, so the way you deal with Tracer is having burst damage helps. Like, Soldier is actually pretty good because the Helix Rocket is surprisingly easy to just kind of hit her with, and you only have to hit her with a couple of shots out of the machine gun, and then she has to, like, leave, basically, right? Like, even if you can't kill Tracer, she's relatively easy to drive away, because once she's taken even a small amount of damage, she has to respect the fact that you can just kind of kill her at that point, right? I've just noticed that it says I'm in bronze, but so that might not be true with the enemy Tracer, but even if you're in bronze, the Tracer will also be not so difficult to deal with. Having some easy to land ability usually drives the Tracer away. Like Anna, if you can hit her with the grenade, the Tracer will leave. She'll recall and then might come back, but if you just hit her again, she has to try and leave, right? This is the thing, like, some amount of it does just come down to you have to kill Tracer. You have to hit the Tracer. 76 is good because standing in Biotic Field makes it a lot harder for Tracer to kill you unless she is really good, which she won't be in bronze. And Helix Rocket, just aim at the ground near Tracer. Like, after she blinks, because she probably won't blink immediately after blinking, so you can see her blink and then fire at her feet and you'll do some damage to her. Reaper doesn't beat Tracer, just like flatly. The Tracer really has to fuck up for Reaper to kill her. And you just do that by getting one shot into her, which will basically kill her. McCree, standard, but if you miss the flashbang, it gets very hard. Anna's just like try to hit her with a grenade. Zenyatta, like, gets beat by Tracer. Like, you just have to hit the Tracer in that regard. Like, Zenyatta doesn't have many options other than just hit Tracer. Yeah, like, Tracer, it's basically, like, try and be relatively hardy and have some easy-to-land burst damage, which is why Soldier 76 is actually really good against Tracer, because he has sustainability in Biotic Field, and Helix Rocket is easy to land, and having a machine gun, you can just kind of aim in the vicinity of Tracer and probably hit her. They have an obvious Smurf. Should we focus the Smurf or focus everyone else? There's two trains of thought there, and if you focus the Smurf, the rest of their team will be worse than the Smurf, so it should be easier. But then there's also the line that if you kill everyone else, the Smurf can't 1v6, so there's two different lines of thinking there. I think, on average, you're probably better off focusing the Smurf, because as well, if they're a really obvious Smurf, they're probably like several degrees higher than you. And as a result, they will play more aggressively than they normally will, because they are gonna have the attitude of, oh, I'm a lot better than these losers, so I don't have to worry about it too much, and they're gonna do shit they shouldn't that will get them punished. And if you just, like, if your team is, like, hard focusing the Smurf, it's really hard to survive, like, 1v6. And if you're in bronze, like, the rest of his team isn't gonna help him, right? Like, he's gonna legitimately be, like, 1v6ing, or however many people are focusing the Smurf. Probably not all 6, but you get the idea. I'm of the opinion that focusing the Smurf will work more often than focusing everybody else, but if they are, like, a really obvious Smurf, it will probably be difficult for you, because if you're 2 or more tiers above whatever you're playing in, it's like really easy to just kind of crush the game, especially if you play the right type of heroes. Like, if the Smurf comes in and he plays Genji or Tracer, and he's like fucking Diamond, you're probably just gonna have to write that game off, realistically, because they're gonna be, like, pretty good, and your team is gonna be really bad, and he's probably just gonna clean house. If the Smurf plays, like, Soldier, then it's not so terrible, because Soldier doesn't kind of just, like, crush people in the same way that, like, Genji and Tracer can, but it'll be hard, but focusing the Smurf, I think, works more on average. They have multiple Smurfs. How do I encourage my team? The fight is not over. If you're in bronze, it's not gonna happen. I'm sorry to tell you this. It's not It's not going to happen. If your team decides the game is over, they've decided the game is over. There's going to be nothing that you can do about that, because that's how people in Bronze are, basically. Dragon Blade from above, or no? Is there more in here? Not much. Dragon Blade. I'm gonna sneeze. So, the thing with Dragon Blading from above is that it's better if you have an Ana on your team, which is much less the case, which is less often the case now, because it just makes it really easy to hit you with the nano boost. It does give you the benefit that you can kind of like plan out what you're gonna do, because you can look down at everybody while you're falling, and plan on who you're gonna dash to real quickly while you're in the air. The reason to not do that would basically be that you need to kill somebody who has mobility, which is more likely the case these days, because Moira is a very popular hero, Mercy is a very popular hero, and these have ways to dash away from Genji. So if you dash into the air, draw out the Dragon Blade, and then dash down, they will use their mobility to get away from you. So if you're specifically trying to kill somebody that has mobility like GA or Fade, you will want to dash up to that person, draw Dragon Blade, they will use their mobility to move away from you, because fucking of course they will, and then you just use the reset off drawing Dragon Blade to follow the person. So, that's the reason to like dash up to the person and then draw Dragon Blade. If their team is relatively immobile, like they've got Ana Zenyatta, then, going above them and then dashing down while they can't dash away from you. But because, like, Moira and Mercy are so popular, and your team is much less likely to have an Ana, doing it from above is less good than it used to be. That was just very standard advice a while ago, but because of the way the game has changed, it's not so good anymore. Still can be good, obviously, but if you are trying to kill somebody that has a dash, you'll need to, like, dash up to them, and then draw the blade, follow them when they use their mobility. There's a lot of mic stuff today, isn't there? Getting frustrated, need help. Oh god, this is very long. Is there, like, really a question on here? Competitive Overwatch has been such a mess recently. I agree 100%. It seems like the gist is basically, the game is hard, and people are bad, and yes, both of those statements are true. So, yeah, it's Overwatch is a very, frustrating game to play, competitively. And, this is a sentiment that's been echoed by very many people, where, and I know personally that, like, a lot of people have said that I've spoken with before have said that I don't really play the game anymore because it's just so tiring. Most often it's like support and tank players that say that because they're frustrated with, I'm sure you can imagine. Overwatch is a very frustrating game to play competitively, so, you kind of have to have a pretty high tolerance, for assholes, basically. Because there's already the natural frustration with, playing a game competitively, in that it's difficult, and that you're gonna lose sometimes, and a game like Overwatch is, like, it's gonna be out of your control in quite a few situations. Like, in some ways, it's more frustrating than a MOBA, because most MOBAs, you can just, like, crush your opponent in lane, and then buy 6 Infinity Edges, and win because you have more stats than their entire team combined. Overwatch is not that way, because your soldier is exactly the same as their soldier. So, unless you are, like, way better than them, you aren't gonna solo carry a game in most instances. So, there's that frustration, but then the Overwatch community is such absolute trash that it doesn't help, because it does seem like it's every other game where somebody throws, trolls, leaves, whatever, like it, and the lower you are as well, the more likely that is to happen to you. And then you also have to deal with the issue that, well, they might have a Smurf on the enemy team as well, because smurfing is quite common in Overwatch. So there's a lot of there's the usual frustrations with playing a competitive game, which is that you can't win every game. and Overwatch is a game that's hard to solo carry. And then you have to deal with our absolutely fucking trash community as well. So I can certainly understand the sentiment where people get frustrated with the game, because you do need to have a very high tolerance. And, I won't lie to you, it never gets better. Once you get to there's no, some people will try to tell you that, once you get to diamond, once you get to platinum, it gets so much better. No, I'm not going to sell you some fucking snake oil, right? It never gets better. Every elo is elo hell. That's why it doesn't exist, because it's just kind of everything is elo hell, because there's always assholes. There's always griefers. There's always leavers. This never stops happening. There's a guy I see constantly in Masters and High Diamond, which is just kind of where he fluctuates, and we have an understanding where, the very first time I ran into this person, I was playing Mercy in the game because nobody else wanted to play a healer. And he was playing Genji, and he was very upset that I wasn't pocketing him. No, I'm not lying. I'm not exaggerating here. That's the exact reason he was upset, that I wasn't just pocketing him. That he did want me to just follow him around as Genji while I'm playing Mercy as the only healer. I was like, no, I don't think I'll do that. So now, we have an understanding, because he immediately just started throwing that game. Now, whenever he sees me, and I'm on his team, he throws the game. That's just how it is. Have I reported him? Yeah. Have other people reported him? Yeah. Does he stop doing it? No. It's just every time I see him. And I'm in a high SR bracket, so I see him semi-regularly. And that's just how it is. It never stops happening. Never. There's assholes everywhere. Anyway, getting aside that, advice on picking a main healer, whichever one you like, basically. I'm a Zen main, and I have a lot of time with, but I want to learn either Mercy or Moira, so I can fit more comps as the main healer. Moira is probably better on average than Mercy is these days, especially if you're good at Moira, but whichever one you want at the end of the day, whichever one you prefer, just play that. What I saw, don't know. Whichever one you like, really. Moira's probably the best main healer that you can learn on average, but it doesn't really matter. What to do when you're a tank and someone on the other team switches to Reaper? Pay attention to where Reaper is. Don't let Reaper sneak up on you. Because the way that, Reaper, I play a lot of Reinhardt, and I've been playing more of him because team comps have been more easy to work with as Reinhardt lately. Just my personal experience, anyway. Yours might differ, because I know a lot of people still think Reinhardt's really bad. I've been having okay times as Reinhardt. I got a 58% win ratio. It's really surprising. Hasn't been that way since, Season 2. Anyway, the way that, he kills you is that he sneaks up on you, or that you don't respect him, and you just kind of, let him walk up to you. As long as you're keeping an eye on where Reaper is, and you don't let him just kind of, get up on you, it's not that much of an issue. Now, you do have to be able to see Reaper, of course. If the Reaper is good, and he, creeps around the back of you, and you never saw it coming, get fucked. But, the way you really deal with it is that you're just aware of the Reaper, and that you respect the fact that Reaper can kill you really quickly, so you pay attention. Now, you can switch to certain heroes that are better against Reaper. If you're playing against Winston, you're just gonna have a hard time playing against the Reaper, probably, assuming the Reaper's playing decently, that is. So if you're playing Winston, you're probably better off switching if the Reaper's causing you a lot of trouble, because there's limited options for Winston to deal with Reaper. You can change to D.Va. D.Va's pretty good against Reaper. You can, burst him enough with D.Va, because D.Va, fly up to him, missiles go in, gun go in, bash into him, melee, that's 75 damage just using shift and melee. If you can do, a decent chunk of burst damage to Reaper, he probably leaves, because Reaper is going to get scared if he drops 150 or below, right? He's going to start getting scared at that point, especially if you're not alone. And you can hold Defense Matrix over him, makes it harder for him to kill other people as well. You can just kind of hold it over him until he's used enough shots that he won't be able to take you out of mech, or he starts reloading, and then you can do the burst damage to him. D.Va has options. You can change to Roadhog, and bearing in mind, if you're changing to Roadhog because they have a Reaper, don't use your hook unless you know Reaper's not going to punish you for using the hook, right? Because the way you deal with him as Roadhog is because you have the hook. So if Reaper's around and he sees you use the hook, he's going to be like, not a threat anymore, and he's going to go in. So Roadhog can work, but you have to really pay attention to where Reaper is, because if you use the hook badly and Reaper sees it, he's going to kill you. So you do have to be careful with that one, but Roadhog is good. Orisa is surprisingly good against Reaper, assuming the rest of his team isn't running over you at the same time, basically. Because Fortify makes it difficult for him to burst you to death, so it sort of becomes like a drag-out thing with him. And you can go in between your shields, you can do the Winston bubble dance as Orisa with her own shield, and you can halt him to the other side, slow him down, blah blah blah. Orisa has more options to deal with a Reaper than you might think she does, so she's also good. But also, if Reaper has any amount of help at all, Orisa will become difficult for Reaper to deal with Reaper, because you have to worry about Reaper and the rest of the team over there. So if it's kind of just Reaper, that's not so much of an issue for Orisa, but those are like your best options, as well as just don't let her. Don't just let him get up on you and pay attention to where he is. Just respect the fact they have a Reaper, right? What shall I expect in Platinum? Sadness. Why do people overextend Trickle and take obviously losing fights? Because they think that they're going to solo carry. That's most often the case, I think, anyway. They think that they are somehow going to win the fight. In their mind, they think they're going to win the fight. Or they don't realize their entire team is dead behind them. Or they do realize that and they don't think it matters. People are bad is the short answer. Tips on climbing as a main tank. So, yeah, all three of the usual suspects. Remember that what SR does it say? Silver, gold. Well, silver, don't play Reinhardt. Your team won't play around you, and Reinhardt is a lot harder to play as when the rest of his team doesn't care that you're playing Reinhardt, basically. Orisa will be better on average, because you can punish people's mistakes as Orisa more easily than Reinhardt anyway, which there'll be a lot of in Silver. Or Winston for the exact same reason as Orisa. The thing is to remember that you're playing a tank, so you should prioritize keeping people alive over doing damage, and Winston's an easy one to get into that with, where people start diving, but their team are getting killed behind them. Even if you're playing an aggressive tank like Winston or D.Va, it doesn't matter how much pressure you're applying. If your team gets killed behind you, they won't be able to take advantage of it. So keeping your own team alive is more important than doing damage as a tank. If you're playing Reinhardt, just land sick Earth Shatters all day, easy money, and that's how you climb. Charge less, as I do love the charge button but most Reinhardt I can see that there's a question down there about why is every Reinhardt so suicidal. Charge less, and if you're playing Winston, don't dive into the entire enemy team, which is what people always do. Because if you dive into the entire enemy team, what they do is what they should do, is just turn around and kill you. Because there's 6 people there, right? And there's only one of you, and Winston's a pretty soft tank. So don't dive into 6 people. Focus on killing the people that you're good at, and that you're good at killing, and people who are out of position. And if you're Winston, zoning off Genji and Tracer if they're causing trouble for your team. And, of course, focusing snipers. But the basic thing is remember that you do need your team alive to get anything done, and it is your job to keep them alive. As a tank, it is not your job to do damage. It is your job to keep the team alive. Why is every Reinhardt suicidal? I don't know what you're talking about. As you can see, my name is very important to me. I can see this, yes. So much that I don't shower. Unfortunately, I do not place very highly. There's a character named Reinhardt that has been present in some of my games, and I notice a certain pattern with Reinhardt. The Reinhardts on my team are all suicidal as fuck. Shield down, better charge at them. Low HP, better can't break the choke, better charge at them. I don't know what you're talking about. John Clifton wonders what is going through these players' minds. Are they going through troubled times, or do they lack common sense? And since this troubles me, what can John Clinton do in this situation? They don't seem to listen or communicate at all, despite playing a tank. Well, John Clifton, I'm feeling very personally attacked. But, the issue is that Reinhardt has this very intoxicating effect on you, right? Where you feel like you can do it all, because, I mean, you're a big guy, you got a hammer, and you got a shield, and you can charge, right? And it feels good to charge them and to hit them. So, people like to do that. And the way, like, Reinhardt is as a character, you feel like you should be able to get away with it. Right, like, because Reinhardt's a pretty confident guy as well. You seen the comic they released, like, when the game came out, which is just like Reinhardt fucking up a whole gang of hoodlums? Yeah, just like goes in, fucks them up. He can do it. When I started playing the game, I absolutely tried to charge the Bastion all the time, because I felt like I should be able to do it. And I tried to, like, charge through whole hog, because I felt like I should be able to do it. Can't do it. Not allowed. Reinhardt has this effect on people where it feels really good to do it. If the player is quite suicidal, there is very little that you can do about it. They won't listen to you, I can tell you that much. There's not a lot you can get to stop them from doing it, so the best you can do is, like, you know they're gonna do it, so you have to, like, try and play around that fact. Like, you can play, like, another tank, and if you play, like, Zarya, you can bubble the Reinhardt when he charges in, and maybe he won't die. You know, maybe, depends. You can play, like, another tank, and while he's doing that, you can try and, like, make headway at the same time while he's being distracting. Basically, like, you can play heroes that will try to, like, make it easier for him to do that, like Zarya. You can play, like, Ana and, like, do a lot of healing to one person and try to keep him alive and nano boost him when he goes in. Or you can just assume he's gonna be a distraction for you and play someone that will benefit off of that distraction, like, flankers, a tank like Winston, or Diva, because while they're dealing with that, you can go and get the other people, while they're distracted with the Reinhardt. So you can either try and, like, keep him alive, even though he's trying very hard to die, or just assume he's gonna do it and use him as a distraction. There's not much you can do to stop the Reinhardt from doing that. I would know. How to shot call properly without messing my words up. Practice. I can tell you that from experience that it's speaking is just something that gets easier the more you do it. Generally, people are very eager to get the words out there, and they rush through it, and that's what causes a lot of stumbling. So just kind of like if you're not sure what you're gonna say, you can just kind of, like, slow down a little bit and, like, think it through as you're doing it, and, like, helps a little bit with, like, enunciation, but it just kind of gets easier with practice, because it's like anything, practice makes it easier. You can do all the, like, vocal exercises and all that nonsense and, like, practice your elocution, but practice basically makes it easier, and don't be in such a rush to get the words out there, because that tends to be what messes people up when they're talking. They're in a rush to get the words out there, and that makes it harder to get the words out there. So now, quick Winston exercise. Holding W or short hops, holding S while jumping. I mean, if you're a bitch. Placement seems to consider performance even after Diamond. This is not my experience, and I'm very depressed about it, frankly. Best way to rank up? Very vague question. What is the best way to gain SR? Do I try and play only my two mains, or do I fill? I'm of the opinion that it's going to be easier if you just main a few heroes. Now, granted, I do think you should be able to play something in every category. You should be able to play a DPS, a tank, and a healer. Because if your whole team, like, you know how people are, right? Like, you're going to need to be other things sometimes. But I am of the opinion that it is better to be really good at a few things than to be average at a bunch of things. So I do recommend just playing your mains if you, like, really want to climb. Now, granted, there's something to be said for being very flexible and being able to play a lot of heroes, but because of the way life is, it's hard to play a lot of characters unless you're ready to put in a lot of effort, or you just have a natural affinity for picking things up. So, flexing is a lot harder than just playing a few heroes, because if you only play a few heroes, you'll have more time on them and you'll be better at them. And I do think that's better. But, you'll climb quickly playing a few heroes instead of a lot of heroes. But if you really like to play a lot of heroes and you really like being the flexible person, by all means, but that will be the harder way to climb. Because there'll be less things you're really good at. But if you are going to play your mains, just try and have one in every category. And the healer should be a main healer. If that's not the category you like to play and you prefer to play the other two, just make sure the healer you know how to play is a main healer. Because if you have to play a healer, it's probably not because you have to play an off healer. It's probably because you have to play a main healer. So, if it's going to be a healer, make sure that the healer you can play is a main healer, because that was what you'll have to fill as a lot of times. How to overcome talking over the mic? In what way? No one talks. I usually don't talk unless someone else does first. I'm too anxious to be the first one to talk over the mic. How do I get over this fear? Just do it more often. Like, if you want to do it, if you want to be a shot-calling man who is really charismatic and leads his team to victory, by all means. But you do have to practice it, unfortunately. I shouldn't say no one. Very few people naturally are very charismatic, right? It's something you kinda have to work at and practice at. Not very many people come out of the gate just like really charismatic and really good at leading people. It's something you have to practice and work at and things like that. And there are exceptions to this, obviously. Some people are very naturally charismatic, but typically this is not the case. The one advice I would have would be to kind of like rehearse various situations with yourself so that you kind of know roughly what you're going to do and you've kind of practiced it or at least gone over it in your mind ahead of time, so you'll be a little bit more comfortable doing it because you've practiced it ahead of time. So try and like figure a few various situations you might find yourself in a game and kind of think about what you would say to try and get people to listen to you. And then when that situation comes up, you'll be ready to do it. But basically, you're gonna have to force yourself to do it. Because if you're like anxious to do it and you're like afraid to talk to people, but you still want to do it, you have to force yourself to do it. Like, that's what it eventually comes down to, is nothing's gonna make it, like, completely painless to do if you're, like, anxious about it. You do just have to force yourself to do it. But this is the thing, right? If you pretend you're confident enough, eventually you just become more confident, right? You have to force yourself to do it, and eventually it will get easier to do. But you have to force yourself to do it. I can tell you that it was very difficult to do what I'm doing right here, right now at first, because I'm actually a very introverted human being. I don't talk very much with people. I'm a very introverted and quiet person by nature. So doing this, it was quite difficult for me at first, but now I have years experience talking in front of a camera, so it's not so much of an issue anymore. You do have to force yourself to do it, and eventually it gets easier to do. At least in my experience. I suppose your experience might vary, but I've heard quite a few people say that as well, so it seems fairly consistent. You do have to just force yourself to do it, though, even though it sucks. Last season I hit Diamond for the first time. Since then I was stuck in beginning of 3 by only on a 10 or 11 game winning streak. What gives? Yeah, you will fucking lose a lot. You will gain a lot of SR if you win a lot of games in a row. Who would have fucking guessed, right? Yeah. How to deal with a flanking Genji as Zenyatta/Anna. Well, Anna, you just hit him with a grenade. I would much just for the record, I would much rather fight a Genji than a Tracer, because Tracer can just, like, one-clip, blink right up to you and one-clip you. Genji's not quite that easy. I would much rather fight a Genji. So, with Ana, the best thing you can do is, like, walk up on near the Genji and try to hit you and him with the grenade. Or when he dashes through you, throw it at your feet. Because if you can hit the Genji with the grenade, he'll probably back out. The Zenyatta, your only option is really to hit him and kill him. Zenyatta doesn't have very much recourse. Now, there is this thing with Genji where what he's going to try and do is, like, get up right next to you and, like, jump around you constantly to try and disorientate you. Now, the thing to remember with Genji is that he has a double jump. Once he's used the double jump, he's actually quite locked into his jump at that point, right? So, similarly to how when you're dueling somebody, if they're jumping around a lot, it's easy to track them, because once they jump, they're pretty locked into the arc. You can kind of manipulate it in the air a little bit, but not really. Genji is actually the same way, it's just he has a double jump, so it doesn't really seem like it, because he can of course jump, and then jump again and completely alter his momentum. But once he's used the second jump, he can't alter his momentum very much anymore. So if you're playing someone like Zenyatta, or any precision-based hero really, just, like, watch him. Once he uses the double jump, he's a lot easier to predict, because he can't alter his momentum as easily. So, that's, like, the best advice I can really give you, other than, like, the not super helpful advice of get good and hit him. Like, that's kind of what it comes down to after a point. Any tips for a Silver, Zarya / off-tank? Don't try to bubble people in anticipation. What most Zarya players do is they're like, oh, that person is gonna take damage, and they bubble them ahead of time, and then quite often what happens is that person ends up taking no damage at all. If you wait for that person to start taking damage, and then bubble them, you will always get some charge out of it, because first off, it's harder to stop yourself firing once you've already started. If you haven't started already, they just go like, oh, wait, okay, now. Whereas if they've started shooting, it's harder to stop themselves from shooting. But just baseline, they won't react to the frame the bubble appears and do no and stop and just do no damage. You'll always get some charge off of doing that. Whereas if you would do it in anticipation, quite frequently you get none. It's usually better to wait for the person to start taking damage. The same can be said of yourself, but it's a little bit easier bubbling yourself because you can bubble yourself and walk across a line of fire. Right, so that's easier, but it's easier if to anticipate if you're bubbling yourself, but with other people, it's usually better to wait until they've started taking damage, and then you'll always get some charge. And that's the issue a lot of Zarya players have, is they have issues consistently building their charge. That usually helps. Use your bubbles reactively more than predictively, and you will always get some charge, and having charge is really integral to playing Zarya. So, I give up, I don't care about my elo anymore, good for you. I'm sick of being the worst player, but I'm running out of options for what to do. I mean, it's gonna feel that way sometimes, almost certainly. It's very frustrating, we already talked about that, though. How many roles do you play? I can play all 3 roles, but I can't play very many heroes for them. I can comfortably play all of the tanks, except Zarya. I'm still not very confident playing Zarya. Mostly because I'm bad at using Graviton. As weird as that sounds. Like, I have no issues with the other parts, I always am bad at using Graviton. I can play all of the tanks except Zarya quite comfortably, and I can play most of the supports, but I find all of the supports to be pretty easy. The one I can't really play is Lucio. Mostly because I just hate playing Lucio. And I can play all of them comfortably, but I'm very confident playing Moira and Reinhardt, and those are the ones I always gravitate to. And I can play some DPS. I can play Genji, because you can play him like a bitch, basically, and it still works. And I can play Soldier, and I can play Reaper. And that's basically it. I do recommend being able to play a hero in every role, but it's not vital that you play a bunch of roles, really. I'm trying to get rid of the DPS. Is only playing 2 roles okay? Yeah, only playing 2 roles is okay. Like, I do recommend playing all 3 if possible, but, like, if you only play 2, like, that's gonna be most situations, right? Like, it's, you don't often have to flex into everything, right? Like, if I play a tank, if nobody wants to pick a healer, probably no one wants to pick a tank. If no one wants to pick a tank, probably no one wants to pick a healer. So being able to flex into, like, one of them is usually fine. It's very rare like, I don't often have to fill as a support, right? It is more, like, oddly enough, it's more often I have to fill as a DPS than I have to fill as a support, because, I mean, I guess I don't really know why. I was gonna say because, I don't really know why. Like, I think a certain amount of the player base is kind of drawn to playing the supports, because, Moira, I think, certainly helped, because quite a lot of people do like to play Moira, and people like to play Zenyatta. And there are people who are not very confident in themselves, so they only play, like, Mercy, right? Or Lucio. So I find I don't actually have to flex as a support that often. I play tanks by choice, usually. I've been playing a lot of Moira, obviously, since she came out, because I really like playing Moira. But people are less likely to pick a tank, so I usually end up picking a tank now, more than picking a support. I actually do have to fill as a DPS more often than I have to fill as a support, but I very frequently have to fill as a tank. But yeah, only playing two roles is fine. Like, it's better if you can play all three, but like only being able to play two roles is like, it's literally by definition going to be most of the situations that you're in. So that is perfectly fine. So I've gone through the usual 2 pages, and that's a pretty long video. So thank you very much for watching. If you did, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. I'm more than happy to answer. If you haven't already, join our Discord. You can ask questions more directly and have like a conversation about it. Go check out Radon's YouTube channel as well, and I hope you found the video helpful.